I was driving through Nevada during a cross-country trip when I stopped at a small roadside motel around midnight. The place looked ancient. Half the neon sign outside barely worked, and the parking lot was almost completely empty. The old man at the front desk barely spoke while checking me in. He just handed me a key and quietly said, "Don't go near room 12 tonight." Unfortunately, my room was room 11. The hallway smelled like cigarette smoke and wet carpet. Every light flickered constantly. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to strange noises coming from the room beside mine. At first it sounded like furniture moving. Then I heard scratching against the wall beside my bed. Slow scratching. Then came whispering. I couldn't understand the words, but it sounded like several people whispering at once. That's when I noticed something horrifying. A shadow slowly appeared beneath the connecting door between my room and room 12. I froze completely staring at the shadow. Then the doorknob slowly started turning. I immediately backed away while the scratching grew louder. Then a voice whispered through the wall. "He let you stay in the wrong room." I grabbed my keys and ran outside immediately. As I reached my car, I looked toward room 12. The curtains slowly moved aside. Several pale faces were staring directly at me from inside the darkness. None of them moved. They just smiled. A few years ago, I worked night shifts at a motel outside Atlanta. Most nights were boring, until one stormy Thursday in October. Around 3:13 a.m., the security cameras started glitching during a thunderstorm. At first I thought the rain was causing interference. Then one of the camera feeds suddenly showed someone standing outside room 27. The strange part was, the guest staying there had checked out hours earlier. The figure stood completely motionless facing the door. Tall, extremely thin, and soaking wet despite standing perfectly still in heavy rain. I decided to call the room phone just in case someone had broken in. The phone connected immediately, but instead of ringing, I heard breathing, slow breathing. Then a distorted voice whispered, "Come outside." The line disconnected instantly. At that exact moment, the figure on the camera disappeared. I nearly called police immediately. Then one of the hallway motion sensors activated by itself. Camera 6 turned on automatically. The same figure was now standing directly outside the motel office staring into the glass. I looked toward the front window. Nobody was there. Then the office lights suddenly shut off, and something tapped softly against the glass beside my head. Last summer, my girlfriend and I stayed at a cheap motel outside Oregon during a road trip. The motel only had 2 floors. We stayed in room 208 near the back staircase. The first strange thing happened around midnight. We heard loud footsteps from the room directly above us. Back and forth, over and over. At first we ignored it. But by 2 a.m., the footsteps still hadn't stopped. My girlfriend finally called the front desk to complain. That's when the employee went silent for several seconds. Then he nervously asked, "Are you sure you hear footsteps above you?" She said yes. The employee replied, "There shouldn't be anyone above you." Apparently the 3rd floor had been permanently closed after a fire years earlier. I honestly thought he was joking, until we heard something heavy drag across the ceiling. Then came screaming. A woman screaming somewhere directly above our room. We both ran outside immediately. Several motel guests were already standing in the parking lot staring upward. There were lights moving behind the burned 3rd floor windows. Someone, or something, was walking around up there. Then one of the windows slowly opened by itself, and a burned pale woman leaned out smiling down at us. The next morning, we left before sunrise. Before checking out, I asked the manager what happened on the 3rd floor. He looked uncomfortable for a moment before quietly saying, "Some guests still hear her walking at night."